In this video, we'll take a look at how to designate an Active Directory profile and let Nerdio Manager know that a particular AD profile is one that is Azure AD DS based rather than an on-premises Active Directory based. This is done from the Settings Integrations page. If we take a look at our Active Directory profiles, we can select any of our profiles listed here. And then there will be a checkbox that simply says Azure AD DS environment. When we click on this checkbox and click OK, this now tells the system that we are using Azure AD DS rather than traditional Active Directory. Now, why is this important? This has impact on two things. Number one, on the Azure environment page, there is a filter called Display Non-AD Synced Users, which is by default set to disabled. That means that in a typical scenario, when we're only working with AD synced environments that's using on-premises Active Directory, then any non-AD synced users are really excluded from the Nerdio Manager UI to avoid any confusion, because those really cannot be entitled to access desktops. However, when dealing with Azure AD DS, all users in Azure AD appear as cloud native users, not as domain synced users. And therefore, this filter needs to be enabled. By checking that box, the system automatically enables this filter, which means that all Azure AD users will now be visible throughout user assignment pages and other places. The other place where this comes into play is when working with Azure files and adding a new Azure file share. One of the options when creating a new Azure file share is if we are adding it to a new storage account. So let's go ahead and create a new storage account. Then if our default profile is set to Azure AD DS, then it will automatically select that it should be joined to Azure AD DS. The reason for this is the procedure and the process for connecting a storage account to Active Directory is different when there is an Azure AD DS instance in a particular environment. So when we designate a Active Directory profile as one that's using Azure AD DS, then this gets selected automatically. And the process works. Otherwise, it's just a manual selection that you have to keep in mind you've got to make when creating new Azure shares or Azure file shares on new storage accounts. I hope you found this useful, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos.